And joining us with more on the many units of government that make up our great state and the debate over whether we should cut back on them are Austin Berg, Vice President of Marketing at the Illinois Policy Institute, and from Springfield, Jerry Crabtree, Executive Director of Township Officials of Illinois, which represents more than 1,400 townships across the state. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Jerry Crabtree, I'd like to start with you, please. Many units of government are quite small in scope. Does that limited focus benefit residents?
I think it does, because it's the most vulnerable in the population. That if our unit of local government, I'm concerned with the 1,426 townships in the state of Illinois, and remember that 85% of our members represent populations of 5,000 or less. So we're fiscally responsible to the most vulnerable members of the population.
Austin Berg, are Illinois residents well served by having so many units of government?
I think that should be really up to them to decide. And the problem with this massive proliferation of local governments throughout the state is that it was very easy to create these once upon a time. That's why we have thousands and thousands and thousands. But it's almost impossible to change them, to redesign them, to get rid of them if the case may be. And I think what most people in Illinois agree on is that we pay really, really high property taxes, the first or second highest in the nation, depending on how you calculate it. But we're not getting the first or second highest quality in government services. So our position is that you really need to let voters decide, make it much easier to bring this question to voters on whether they should consolidate or not.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk more about that coming up. But, Jerry Crabtree, advocates for streamlining, obviously you heard just now, they say these tax dollars that support units of government are a burden on Illinoisans. What do you make of that argument?
Well, by burden, I think if you're looking at the property tax bill as a whole, the average property tax percentage that townships feed off of is between 2 and 3%, where the average school district population is, or percentage is 65%. I agree with the Illinois Institute that, the voters have to decide. And I would say that in my years of being here, every time it's challenged, it's always, loses at the polls. And that's always been our advocacy, is let the voters determine. But the fiscal responsibility is so low that it's not going to solve the property tax problem or save money.
Austin, are there reliable estimates of how much money could be saved by consolidating units of government?
We can barely get a reliable estimate on how many units of local government there are. That's how crazy this problem has really become. In 40 states, the average person lives under 2 units of local government, just 2 units of local government. In Illinois, you have areas where people are living under 16 units of local government. And of course, changing that isn't going to change your property tax bill overnight, but our property taxes right now are death by 1,000 cuts. You don't need 2 kitchens to serve a family meal in your house, right? You don't need 17 cars in the driveway, maybe you need 2. So I think these changes around the edges actually really do add up. And hopefully people really become educated about how many layers are in their community and ways that they can consolidate them. At the state level right now, you really need legislation to make this easier for people to tackle in their local communities.
Well, and to that point, Jerry Crabtree, lawmakers in past years have considered letting voters dissolve or consolidate units of local government via referendum. It sounds like that's something you're supportive of. Do you see that as going anywhere in Springfield?
The system has always allowed for it. This isn't new. There is a statutory provision that would allow it. Our association has always had this position that if it makes fiscal responsible sense to consolidate or eliminate, that's a whole different area. Any consolidated effort must be left up to the voters. And most of the time, the voters will vote it to keep it because it is the government and township government most common to the community. And I think, as Austin has indicated, it's the different layers of government that you have to look at. And township government is one that is very effective locally if it's financially supported and the services that they provide are needed services for the community. And I don't believe that other units of government could take over those at the same level of service.
Austin, we've got about 30 seconds left, but I want to ask you, do you think there's a possibility that residents who, vote to eliminate or consolidate some of these units of government might regret that vote?
Maybe, but that's the nature of democracy. And I think what's most important is that people have the voice, people have the option. One gentleman that we work with extensively, his name's Bob Anderson. He's from Wonder Lake in McHenry County. His property tax bill today is higher than the value of the house that he built when he first moved there. He's been trying to consolidate government for years, and all he's faced is personal intimidation, attacks, nails on the driveway of his barbershop. We're just asking for Illinois lawmakers to make it easier for residents like Bob to serve their communities better.
Well, a long-running conversation in Illinois, and one that I imagine is not going anywhere anytime soon. Thank you both for joining us, Jerry Crabtree and Austin Berg. We appreciate it.
Thank you.